What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today it's the Game Week 1 preview. This is a weekly video where I go through some of the key talking points and questions that you guys have. I've asked for questions on Twitter and YouTube every week, and then go through some of the highest requested ones. So we've got 5 things to go through today. I don't tend to focus on my team so much in these videos, although I might touch on it a little bit. It's mostly just the points of discussion and kind of what my opinion is on those things. So if you enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and let's jump into it. So first up, let's talk about your game week squad as a whole. I'm not going to go into particular players you should be looking at. I think I've done that enough on the channel. I've still got a couple of streams to come as well this week, so plenty of other questions to answer on certain players. This is kind of an overall thinking about Game Week 1 squad. Now, a lot of people are going to start panicking this week, especially as it gets closer to the deadline. All that thinking you've done over the last month or so, you're going to suddenly think that it's all wrong. You need to completely change your team. My advice would be don't do that. If you've had this long to think about your team, you've probably put in about as much research as you can. And I think of it almost as sitting an exam. When I used to go and sit an exam at school or college, I didn't tend to cram too much outside of the exam hall like a lot of other people did, because I kind of thought, at this point, if I don't know it, I'm never going to know it. And I still think that's the same for Game Week 1 squads. At this point, if you've not done the research, you're not going to have any more info you can cram in. Just go with what you know already. And if it's a choice between going for something new or sticking to your initial instinct or gut, I'd always favour going for your instinct or gut. Yes, it could go wrong, but at least you kind of had a reason to do it in the first place. So stick with that. A couple of things to remember. You're not picking a squad for the whole season. We do have transfers. If something does go wrong, and it probably will go wrong as I've written on screen, you can transfer out a player in Game Week 2, you can transfer him out in Game Week 3 if you've got 2 free transfers. You can even take a hit, and obviously we have got wildcards in our back pockets as well. So if it goes completely wrong, where you've completely selected the whole entire squad incorrectly, then you can fix that as well. So don't put players in because they're going to score X amount of points over the season. It's virtually or extremely rare where you have a player in your Game Week 1 squad which then lasts for the whole season. We hear a lot of people say X player is a season keeper. Injuries happen, form happens, gets worse, gets better, and it's very rare you'll have more than 1 or 2 players for the whole season. So don't panic about that at all. And I just want to quickly touch on triple captain because a few people are looking at using it. I think for the most part it's on Salah versus Norwich. Now, I'm not going to go for him. I don't think it's the worst call. I think he looked really good in the Community Shield. Norwich, a team that you probably don't fancy for too many clean sheets. The main problem for me is you don't know what the form of all the teams are going to be like at the start of the season. Will Norwich somehow pull defensive performances out of the bag? It would seem unlikely, but I'd rather know before I use that triple captain. Definitely a way to get a head start, I think. Not that it really matters. It's all kind of relative because other people will just have their triple captain later on in the season. But Salah, Liverpool, Game Week 1 versus Norwich at home, I do think there are plenty of worse times you can use it. So if it's something you want to do, absolutely go for it. For me, I would rather have all the information on how team's form is and how player form is before going into using that chip. So another thing that a lot of people are discussing is whether they should have 2 or 3 premiums. I think most people are going with 2. I've not seen too many drafts without it. So that's usually Salah and Sterling or Salah and Kane. Maybe Aubameyang thrown in there as well. I've not seen too many Sterling and Kanes. I think a lot of people have got Salah, and obviously rightly so. So I've looked at putting a kind of 3 premium player draft together just to kind of give you an idea of what it might look like. Obviously your team could be different, and whether or not basically that I like it. Does 3 premium players, attackers, to cause too much trouble to the rest of your team? So this squad here on screen, this is basically only 2 changes from my actual squad. So Kane is in instead of Wilson, obviously he costs 3 million more, and Jorginho is in instead of Lucas Moura. And I actually had 0.5 million in the bank. That's why although Jorginho is only 2.5 million less, obviously that doesn't make up the 3 million for Kane. I had 0.5 million in the bank. So basically, if you're looking at your team like this, is Kane going to score that many more points than Wilson versus Jorginho versus a 7.5 million midfielder? Now, I've got Lucas Moura, but that could be Fraser, it could be Martial, it could be one of the 7 million midfielders, whatever you want to do. Which combo works better? Now, it's very hard to say exactly what will happen, but for me, the 5 million midfielders, you're relying on a little bit of luck, I think, to get points, and then you're hoping that Kane absolutely smashes it. Now, with Villa and Newcastle at home, that could happen. Obviously, Aubameyang's got pretty nice fixtures for the opening couple as well. They could score really good points, but for me, someone like Wilson or maybe even Vardy, I think they've got a good chance of matching the premium forwards. They might not get exactly there, but I think they'll be very close behind. I mean, you've got to remember that Wilson's got Sheffield United and Villa to start the season, so it does have Man City as well, like Kane. So kind of opening 3 fixtures are very similar for both. Their points per game were similar last year. That's why I'm going for Wilson. I just think the extra money I save on that can definitely be better spent in midfield. Now, obviously, there are different combinations and ways you can have three premium players. So maybe you've got a better team and a better way of doing it. But I just don't like the sacrifice that has to be made to have that third premium. And obviously, you can only captain one of them. I've gone for Salah and Sterling because I think that's my 2 captain choices. Sorted for the foreseeable future, maybe the first 10 game weeks. I'm not really interested in captaining Kane when I've got Salah and Sterling. So that's why I'm not doing it. But I don't think the team looks too bad. And having a 5 million enabler, if you really want to do it, is not the worst thing in the world. I just think there's better ways to spend the money. Going to talk about goalkeepers next. Mostly 4.5 million keepers. As I've got on screen, why not premium? So I've spoken about this quite a lot, so I don't want to go into too much detail. Essentially, I just prefer having a 4.5 million keeper and a 6.5 million defender maybe, rather than the other way around. So you could have a 6 million keeper and then a 4.5, maybe 5 million defender. I just don't think the defenders, for the most part, at least from what we know right now, and this could develop as the season goes on, I just don't think they're going to offer enough. So I'm going for a 4.5, and I've been asked quite a lot which one to go for. In my current draft, I have Heaton. I've narrowed it down probably to Heaton, Henderson and Pope. I don't think I'm going to go for the Brighton goalkeeper, Ryan. Obviously, the Ryan-Button combo is quite nice. But from what I've read under Potter, I think Brighton are probably going to attack a bit more and maybe not be as defensively sound as they have been previously. But obviously, even then, they're not really the greatest defensive team in the league. So I've narrowed it down to these 3. I think all notified for being good shot stoppers, especially Heaton and Pope. Back in the Burnley days, when those 2 have played predominantly a lot of minutes in a season, they've got really good points just because of the way Burnley plays, but as well as being good shot stoppers. So I've narrowed it down to those kind of 3. Henderson, I'm probably not going to go for. It's probably going to be the other 2. There's a lot of hype around Henderson that he is a good shot stopper, maybe good for penalties as well. And obviously, we've seen the likes of Etheridge do really well last year. But I'm probably going to go for Heaton and Pope. Now, I had Heaton in because fixtures for Aston Villa are pretty good. And I'm hoping he can be the shot stopper that gets them the odd clean sheet and basically win the clean sheet on his own almost. Now, that's a lot of hope riding on Aston Villa doing well defensively. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. And as someone pointed out on Twitter, and I do apologise because I can't remember who it was, but Heaton does play Spurs, Bournemouth and Everton in the first 3 fixtures. Now, I don't necessarily mind my players playing each other, but when you've potentially got Kane or Lucas Moura, Wilson, Fraser or King, maybe Richarlison, Sigurdsson, Moise Kean even potentially as well, then that's a lot of your players playing Heaton week in, week out, where at least for the first 3 game weeks, where you're hoping Heaton doesn't get a clean sheet. Now, obviously, he can top up his points with saves, but I'm potentially going to look at Pope instead. Southampton to open the game week, game week 1, and obviously playing for Burnley as well, more established club than Villa in the league. No Europa League as well this year, so I think they've probably got a better chance at clean sheets than they maybe got last year. Obviously, last year wasn't the best. So I'm probably actually going to look to swap from Heaton to Pope. We'll see what happens. It's going to be between one of those 2. Is rotation an option? Heaton and Pope do rotate really well, and I used to be a big fan of rotating goalkeepers, but I've kind of changed my approach as I've played FPL more and more. Main reason is it can be really devastating if you pick the wrong one, and that can happen quite a lot. And obviously, like I've said a few times now, they can top their points up with save points, which they tend to get in the harder fixtures as well. And they've got as good a chance as anyone at getting a clean sheet against a tough opponent if they get lucky on their day. So I'm going to stick with 1. I'm going to have Button as backup probably, and it'll probably be Pope, although currently it's Heaton. Seen a lot of worries about bench and people asking kind of how many bench players should they have that are definitely going to play. Can you get away with having non-bench playing options? For me, you don't have to have a full set of playing players on the bench. So I'm going to have like a 4.0 million keeper. They're not going to play. I'm probably going to have a 4.5 million forward. They're not likely to get many minutes. Obviously, I've got Mason Greenwood on the screen. I do think there's a chance he gets some minutes for Man United, but it's not going to be regularly, I don't think. Unless he comes and bursts on the scene and does absolutely brilliantly, and Solskjaer has no reason but to play him. But I just don't see that happening. So you don't have to have a full non-playing bench, but I would like to have a few that are going to play. So I've got the likes of Dendoncker, 4.0 million defender in Lundstrom. Hopefully he's going to carry on playing in midfield. We'll have to see if any more transfers coming in for Sheffield United, but pre-season's pretty promising. So I've got a couple there. And the main reason is you're unlikely to rely on all outfield options at once. It's very unlikely to get 3 bench players on the pitch in one game week. Obviously, 1 week you might get 1 week you might get 2, but to get 3, especially this early on in the season, is unlikely. Like I've said previously, we have got the wild card in the back pocket. If it all goes wrong and our benches are awful and we need to improve, then we can overhaul the squad, and doing it early on is not always the worst thing. And then just consider ownership and price drop. So a lot of people have talked about this on Twitter. Mason Greenwood is going to be highly owned. He's a Man United player. People think he's going to get pre-season minutes. Or minutes because of pre-season, and when they realise that's not going to happen, they're probably going to sell him, and there's potential for a price drop. So a strategy that a lot of people will do is get in players with very low ownership who can't be sold as much, and hopefully they won't suffer as many price drops. So I don't tend to worry about this. You know, if the likes of Dendoncker, Lundstrom have got high ownership because they might play, I'd rather take the risk and not worry about a 0.1 million drop. But when it's a 4.5 million forward that's not going to play anyway, you might want to go for the lower owned player. Something else I'm seeing talked about quite a lot, people getting jittery on Liverpool defence. I have talked about this quite a bit, so again, a bit like goalkeepers and premium keepers, I'm not going to talk about it too much. For me, I'm still going for 2. I've got Robertson and Van Dijk. That's not likely to change. Could you go down to 1? Maybe. I feel like everyone's got 1. So maybe the double up is a bit of a differential over the players that have either got 1 Liverpool defender or none. Pre-season results have not been great in terms of clean sheets, but obviously we've got to remember they're going to go into game week 1 with a pretty much full squad. You'd expect their first 11 to do really well. Looking at last year, second best expected goals conceded, second best for shots conceded, second best for shots in the box conceded. Obviously, the number 1 team, Man City, beat them, but the rest of the league is a little bit further behind. I don't expect that to change this year. Defensively, they're sound. Got solid, obviously, Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk +1, probably Gomez and Alisson is a pretty solid backline now. They're used to playing together. Very, very good defenders, obviously attacking-wise and defensively, which is why we like them. And they've got kind of 3, I would almost call them like 3 workhorses in front. Not necessarily got that creative midfielder like a Coutinho or someone like that. Obviously, Fabinho's pretty decent, but not quite at that level. But they absolutely work, and they protect that back line as well. So, overall, solidly defensively. And I don't really see why that would change this season. So, pre-season, yes, maybe there'll be a bit of regression, but I don't think it's going to be enough where we're not happy to have 2 defenders in a team, at least 1 for sure, especially given their fixtures and how good they should be again this year. So that's it for this video. Hopefully it helped you out and answered some of the questions and things you've been looking to discuss. If I have missed anything, leave a comment below and I'll try and get back to as many as possible. That is the final short video going into game week 1. All the pre-season content is gone now. I've still got 2 streams to come, one at 9 PM on Thursday, maybe slightly earlier, but it should be 9 o'clock. And then one at about 6 o'clock on Friday before the deadline. So 2 streams to come, but short form content is now finished. I hope you did enjoy it. Obviously, I've done quite a bit, and I'm really happy with what I've put out. If you did enjoy this particular video, make sure to give it a like. Go and watch the rest of the videos you've not already watched, and subscribe if you're new around here. Plenty more content coming throughout the season. Otherwise, I'll leave it there. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. See you soon.